I was talking to Jan about this concept of the noble lie, but wouldn't the New School for Social Research also be under the Fabian Society? And it looks like they fund the Aspen Institute as well.
Yeah. The Aspen Institute, okay. You click on the Aspen Institute, you've got Donald and Frederick Kagan. You've got connections to the Rockefeller Brothers Trust or Fund, and connections to the Ford Foundation, Carnegie Corporation, University of Chicago, and even the CIA.
Can you see what inspired the Aspen Institute?
Well, yeah, one of the main inspirations for the Aspen Institute looks like it's the Great Books of the Western World by Robert Maynard Hutchins. And if you click on that, it connects you to not only Leo Strauss, but a whole bunch of things to do with the liberal arts, the Trivium, Mortimer Adler, Mark Van Doren, Sir Walter Forbes Murdoch, and of course the fact that critical thinking was removed from public schools.
So do you think these guys are funding the Aspen Institute to help people get a liberal education?
No, it looks like they're funding ways to take advantage of people who are absent the liberal education through a doctrine called preemptive doctrine, really. It's where you strike at people who don't yet have the progressive capability to have these 7 liberal arts, and you instill it upon them ostensibly through the use of force, right? Through military strikes. And it's really just a rationalization for being able to go into a country, destroy it, rebuild it, and lend the country lots of money, which they can never repay.
So how do you think the noble lie plays into that whole neocon strategy? Does it have any connection?
Well, the idea of states sponsoring terrorism, which is never proven because it violates national security to give any details, sets up this structure where you can perpetually invade anyone and benefit from the costs incurred therein, and this strategy, this doctrine of preemption gives you the supposed moral rationalization. It acts like it's a philosophy, but it's really an ideology to be able to justify, quote unquote, these incursions on people's sovereignty, innocent countries' sovereignty.
So it seems like these characters got a hold of this liberal education in the 50s. They got this book, they got this set of books printed amongst themselves, and then immediately took that knowledge and tried to take over the world with it. Because they lead with the noble lie into the Bush strategy of military preemption so that we can spread democracy by force. It just seems like an oxymoron. Why wouldn't they just want to make everyone competent? Why would they seek to use it against people?
Probably because it being a noble lie, it's believed by the uneducated masses, right? It's a concept that's been around for thousands of years. It's been used by pretty much every military or dictator leader in history, because it's the most efficient way to control people, not through physical means, but by having them believe in this noble lie, which then sets the foundation for all the other hoaxes that you're perpetrating. The fact that you'll find so many overlapping people in the Aspen Institute, the CFR, and employing the preemption doctrine, they were all members of Project for a New American Century, which famously called for what they called a new Pearl Harbor in order to justify invading the Middle East, right? And so one of the most foremost arguments that people make when they're talking about 9/11 being committed by someone other than terrorists from a cave in Afghanistan is that this attack provided the rationale, right, to then put into effect this cause of preemption. And without that event happening, they would never be able to kind of get their foot in the door where they could wedge this doctrine in and create rationalization after rationalization, where we're at now in 2010, where they're coming out with, they want to come out with torture warrants, right? A judge can write a warrant where you're allowed to be tortured under these certain conditions. So it's all based on this one event. So 9/11 is the 21st century's first noble lie.
Well, and it's like the noble lie is only powerful as long as we believe in these myths that they have created, right? Mm-hmm. So what's a good thing that average people could use to insulate themselves from these other people using that liberal education against all of us?
Well, the first thing they have to do is question the noble lie itself But in order to do that effectively, they have to be using the same tools that are being used against them, that they're being taken advantage of because of the absence of these tools. So in order to level the playing field with the people who are oppressing us, we need to learn what their methodology is, and it is this 7 liberal arts, or the trivium and quadrivium methodology. Primarily, the trivium gives you the ability to critically think and to analyze what exactly is the noble lie, what questions do I need to ask to unravel it and expose it, and then once you've got all that information sorted out, then you can take constructive action based on what you know as opposed to what you hope you think is true.
Well, I think far too many of us probably go through the days just guessing and using some random form of critical thinking to get through these days. And it seems like the advantage that these other people have with this system is just enough to always give them the edge. So where can we get a great set of books to learn about these things?
Well, there's a lot of people who've written about the trivium itself. If people can get a copy of the great books of the Western world, they'll be right on the same page in terms of knowing what inspired things like the Aspen Institute, but that's a pretty heavy read for a lot of people. So condensed versions, I know you can find, who is it? Dorothy Sayers has got a lot on the trivium. Jan Irving's Gnostic Media's got several podcasts on the trivium, the logical fallacies, and identifying, fallacious arguments. And of course, like Peace Revolution, Trivium Education, there's a lot of resources that are popping up, and you can learn these skills from any kind of angle, whether people coming at it from the Christian angle or the New Age angle or whatever. The point is that identifying these core tools is going to give you more strength than any of these other belief systems.
So if the noble lie is a type of concealment or omission that takes away your free will, your right to make an informed choice, if governments are using the noble lie to spread democracy by force, what would that equate to?
Obviously, it's terrorism. It's just yet another word which they've taken to redefine as anyone who opposes government tyranny and force and coercion and violence. But it is in fact the use of force, coercion, and violence by the government in order to achieve its own ends, its own agendas. And that's what we see here. We see the authoring of the preemption doctrine by the very people who got in power within a year, and within another year they get their exact events on their wish list to put in place their preemption. So you have motive and opportunity, which in a criminal case would point these guys as the suspects, right? Way more than Osama bin Laden, who within the first month issued several notes saying, I'm not responsible, I would never do something like this, and then we never hear from him again legitimately. So
why would someone like you take up your Friday night doing all that has to be done on your end to make this Skype interview happen? Not interview, but this little dialogue.
Because it matters to me to get the truth out about what's going on, but more so to give people the capability to understand what's going on themselves, so that, to spark their curiosity, to spark their interest, so that they care more on a Friday night about maybe learning something that empowers their life rather than spending their money and their energy getting wasted. And I'm in Canada, the land of beer and hockey, but I just feel that I'm not going to force anyone to change their habits, but I'm going to show them, here's the habits I'm developing. If you think that's useful and benefits your life, then by all means emulate or change your habits to benefit your own life. It's different things work for different people, so all you can do is provide them an example and say, does this work for you? If not, keep on trucking. I'll keep on walking.
And how do you tell fact from fiction?
Well, I scream louder at fiction than I do at fact. That's how I tell it. I use the trivium method to the best of my ability, right? You have to have discernment and you have to be able to do your due diligence, but once you've integrated that methodology of understanding grammar and logic and rhetoric, then it makes the information you take in with your 5 senses a lot easier to process, a lot easier to understand, and especially a lot easier to communicate back to other people. So, it's one of those things, just like learning, the basics of mathematics. It's one of those things that you need to learn, because without it, everything else you try and do is going to be lacking. And you don't really realize it until you've learned it, right? I thought I was smart until I learned the trivium. And even though I know I'm not necessarily smart, at least I'm more conscious of my own incompetence.
Exactly. So what's coming up next episode?
Well, in the next episode of What You've Been Missing, we're going to look at the underground secret history of public education and just what that means for the common person who's been subjected to 12 years of that conditioning system and what it churns out and what the end result is. We look at the last 100 years of a society without proper critical thinking and just what that society looks like. It's a little bit frightening, but being aware of it and learning how to undo the damage is a really empowering thing. So people will definitely want to tune into the next episode of What You've Been Missing.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Mark Twain quote. He said, "The role of all great religious and educational institutions is to reveal information, but it's also to conceal information." So let's go out to the study and see what education's been concealed from us. That's what you've been missing.
Cool.
To seize this moment, we have to use technology to open up our democracy.
Good evening. Rap news is back this week on the back of yet another massive leaking, which lays bare and paints a clear picture of the actual dealings and reality of Operation Iraqi Freedom. It's been 7 years of that illegal invasion, which has claimed 1 million Iraqi people. The leaping toll of casualties and images from Abu Ghraib of rape, kidnappings, beatings, as hawks now have their eyes fixed on Iran. We analyze the man behind that original plan. And these very events, presenting our first guest, Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense. Mr. Rumsfeld?
Hi there.
Welcome down to the station. In light of this revelation, how do you feel now about the invasion?
This isn't new information, and it was liberation. Iraqis are now free to play soccer and PlayStation.
What about Abu Ghraib and the allegations, not just of humiliation, but of savage raping?
My actual statement is the military and the killing scene is at liberty to blow off a little steam. If you remember, the Iraqis had WMD.
Doesn't it trouble you that you failed to find any?
Well, steady, I never said Iraq had weapons, you know.
Yes, you did. You said that exact fact a second ago.
You know, there's things we know and things we don't know. And the knowns we know are known as known knowns. Things we know we don't know, which are known as no-nos among the knowns, and the no-nos we know go with the don't knows.
I don't know. Intelligence was distorted and cynical, scorned and ridiculed, support for your war was minimal. Won't history judge you as a war criminal?
We'll write the books. They won't be at all critical. This interview's over. General, get him, boys.
Hey, ow!
Take him away. He's pitiful.
With pleasure. Now to shut rap news down forever.
All right, kill the live feed. Bring the live feed. This is News World Order. I'm Bill O'Reilly, resuming entirely regular broadcasts of news for unbiased, fair, broad, and balanced views. Now, my first guest is a true American hero, Donald.
Bill, good to finally get on a real show.
So, how's the United States of Iraq in the last quarter?
Well, our crack forces, hand in hand with Blackwater, have forged ahead, creating an idyllic state that will hand over to whoever's left at the end.
The number of people in the Middle East opposed to democracy has swiftly decreased.
Yeah, by like 1 million at least since 2003.
That's 1 million more people who are now blissfully in peace. And WikiLeaks?
Bill, please, don't get me started on those frickin' cyber geeks.
What gets me is these hippies keep criticizing the military when the military keeps them living free from tyranny, terrorists, and nuclear bomb threats.
They seem to have a military-industrial complex, and this Julian Assange makes his foolish demands as the blood of Afghanis pools in his hands.
A lot of people are saying he's ruled by his glands, that he kidnapped schoolgirls and abused them in Iceland. But now, a word from our sponsor. We'll be back pretty fast with the former Secretary of Kickin' Ass.
Why see shades of grey? Why be alone? Try another Soma. Soma! Life's good.